4, a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, if you please silence your cell phones, we'd appreciate that. Second of all, the way the meeting agenda works is once we're done approving the minutes and doing the roll call, city staff presents on an item. Once they're done with that, it's opened up just to the commission for technical questions. Once we're done with our technical questions, we open it up for public commentary. If you have a comment or a question, please step up to the microphone over there and state your name and address so we have it for the minutes. Once everybody who has spoken is given that opportunity, we bring it back to the commission for discussion and a vote to the next item. With that, let us call the roll.
Thomas Fortek.
Here.
Kathleen Propp.
Here.
David Borsick. Ed Bowen. Steve Cummings.
Here.
Michael Ford.
Here.
John Hinds.
Here.
John Kiefer. Robert Weigert.
Here.
Thomas Perry.
Here.
Andrew Mott.
Here.
Okay, moving on to the approval of the minutes from May 15th. Do we have any additions, corrections, deletions, et cetera?
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, passes. Let us move on to item number 1, street right-of-way dedications at 1634 through 1810 Oshkosh Avenue and North Westfield Street, north of Oshkosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome, sir.
As you just said, this is a request for two right-of-way dedications. One involving the widening of Oshkosh Avenue, and the second is creating an extension of North Westfield Street, north of Oshkosh Avenue. These dedications are required for proposed improvements and revitalization of the Oshkosh Avenue corridor. On the screen, I have an air photo of the proposed dedication areas. The first dedication, the Oshkosh Avenue right-of-way widening, will dedicate approximately 25,725 square feet of land for right-of-way, which extends from 1634 through 1810 Oshkosh Avenue. The proposed dedicated area is 24 feet wide, which will make this section of Oshkosh Avenue an 80-foot right-of-way. The extra width is going to be required for the redesign of Oshkosh Avenue and intersection improvements at North Westfield Street and Oshkosh Avenue. And this dedication will also make Oshkosh Avenue compliant with the city's comprehensive plan, which recommends arterial class streets, which includes Oshkosh Avenue, to have an 80-foot right-of-way. The second dedication is a proposed extension of North Westfield Street, north of Oshkosh Avenue, and involves approximately 30,500 square feet of land. The dedication is proposed to be 80 feet wide by 357 feet long, and will merge into a future unnamed street, which will run southwesterly and link into North Keller Street to the west. The 80-foot width is being proposed based on a recommendation from the traffic impact analysis that was prepared in anticipation of the redevelopment of the area, which includes Oshkosh Corporation's global headquarters to the north. And this dedication will also provide vehicular and utility access to both the east and west sides of the new Westfield Street. For both streets, the proposed 80-foot right-of-ways will accommodate 4-lane streets, turn lanes, and provide area for public walks, ample area for terrace trees, and snow storage. The dedications are part of a draft CSM, which is currently under review by the city. Once the city approves the CSM, it will be recorded at the Winnebago County Register of Deeds, and then the dedication will become official upon Common Council approval. So staff is recommending approval of the right-of-way dedications of Oshkosh Avenue and North Westfield Street as proposed.
All right, technical questions, anybody? Seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to these items today? Going once? Twice? Okay, back to the commission.
Motion to approve. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's call the roll, please.
Kathleen Propp.
Aye.
Ed Bowen.
Aye.
Steve Cummings.
Aye.
Michael Ford.
Aye.
John Hinds.
Aye.
Robert Weigert.
Aye.
Thomas Perry.
Aye.
Andrew Mott.
Aye.
Thomas Fortek.
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
All right, moving on, item number 2. Design standards variance to allow construction of a rear addition with materials not substantially similar to the existing building, 914 East Murdoch Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So item 2 is a design standards variance, but it's a little bit different than some of the ones that we've seen lately. This one is for a commercial building on Murdoch. And it is really to, and we'll get into it a little bit, but it is to permit a rear addition with materials that are not substantially similar to the main building, the building that's existing. You can kind of see the subject site here in blue. A lot of the areas around are commercial buildings. They're zoned UMU, a lot of them. To the east, there's some multifamily buildings there. To the south, there's some duplex residential. Like I said, to the west, there's a lot of commercial over there. A lot of parking lots around the site too. Just an aerial here showing it a little bit better, so you can kind of get a sense of all the hard surfaces and such, but it is not far from a corner there, Murdoch and Grove, so you'll be able to see some images from both streets that show the subject property and that it is visible from both pretty easily. Here is a front shot of the building. So it's not a home run in terms of architectural integrity. You know, it's a small commercial building. It's cinder block, pretty nondescript. But what they are looking to do is put an addition on the rear. Kind of go around. This is from Murdoch here, looking at the building, looking north. And then this here is on Grove Street. And so you can tell if you look at the rear of this building that you would be able to see the addition that is supposed to go right here. Basically they'd extend this wall. This is cinder block here. They'd extend this, and it would be like a small 8-foot by 9-foot addition, basically to house a brick oven that's currently within this building. They want to move that oven to the addition that would be part of this building, but out of the main footprint, to allow more space for some of the operations of the business. We'll kind of get into what they want to do here. So this is a plan here. You see the building here. Murdoch is right here. Grove would be kind of down this way. It's, like I said, not right on the corner, but it's visible from Grove or Murdoch. The enclosure would be back here. So they'd be looking to put a small addition. Cinder block would be this east facade here. It'd be a similar material to the existing building. And then on the north and the west facades, they'd use metal paneling. More of a, I think there should be some images in your packets, but basically it's more of a sort of corrugated industrial or agricultural aesthetic, and less in keeping with the materials that this building's constructed of. Just some elevations here. So basically what they do is, you can see this is looking at that north elevation there. This was the first thing that they submitted. They'd have these metal, basically cold form steel structure, but then metal panels over it. And they cited the need to be able to disassemble this addition potentially in the future to get at this oven and change it out, the oven that'd be housed in here. This is a side view here, the east elevation, showing the cinder block that would be extended. So at least that would be consistent with the materials that this building's already made out of. Here's the plan view of it, a little bit more detailed. So it looks like they have like this door here, some opening to be able to get that oven in there. And then there's a side just service door there. And then the cold form steel structure with metal paneling there on both these, this west facade and north facade, and then the cinder block on the east. So that's existing condition looking at that corner of the building where the addition would come out right here. Another picture looking at the north facade of the building without the addition, but the addition would go right at this corner basically. And then just another corner shot and showing the oven that they would house in that enclosure. So right now it's within the main building. They want to move it out. So staff worked with the applicant a little bit, talked to the applicant, and asked for the applicant to look at alternative materials. We realize that the building's not, an architectural masterpiece per se. It's pretty small, but it is visible. and we want to make sure that whatever addition that's proposed does not detract from the building itself. So we asked them to look at other materials, alternatives to the metal panels in particular. The cinder block, we could see them doing because it would be consistent with the existing cinder block on the building. But the metal panels, I think, are considered a Class 4 material by zoning ordinance, and they're actually prohibited on commercial buildings in the city. So we asked them to look at alternative materials. They came back with basically corrugated metal panels with exposed fasteners the second time. And we thought that that would be, that would have a detrimental impact on the architectural appearance of this building. And that the variance criteria that are listed in the staff report that you usually look at when you're evaluating these requests, none of these would really apply as far as staff could see. So we recommend that you deny this request as it is at this time. We've tried to work with the applicant. We'd like to see some other alternative materials considered for this addition.
Those panels are what, on pages 14 through 16?
Yep.
Staff report?
I forgot to include them in the PowerPoint. I apologize, but they should be in your staff report. Those are some of the ones that they proposed a second time.
All right, technical questions, John, and then Michael.
Do we have a street view from Evans Street? 'Cause that would be the side that would be seeing the non-conforming side, I guess, basically. I mean, is it going to be readily visible from Evans Street also, or?
Go back to the,
Yeah, let's go back here. Go to the aerial, I think. I do not have one. There is a building.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's why I was just double checking to make sure, because we had the Grove, we're concentrating on the Grove Street side, and that was the side they were actually making match.
Is that the bowling alley to the north, and who's to the west?
Michael?
Yeah, you said the metal they're using is not up to code? What did I catch there?
it's not, it's a prohibited material?
item?
I believe,
Commercial buildings?
I believe it is. I believe it's a Class 4.
Was it the second item they brought was also class 4?
Yes, that's what we would consider it anyway, from what we could tell.
Okay. If they were to bring class 3, or is there something comparable they could bring that wouldn't be cost prohibitive?
I guess we do allow a type of metal panel. I think it's got to be an architectural
Yep.
style metal panel. So we do allow metal panels. We just don't allow these particular types of metal panels on a commercial application. I don't have the language. Look at the book. Go on.
Other technical questions?
Is it allowed to have a roll-type metal door, like a garage door type of thing, if the sides were cinder blocked and have one side be primarily a roll-type metal door?
And absolutely, that is, and we as staff actually proposed that as an alternative, to be able to get that oven out rather than citing a need to disassemble the entire structure or, part of the enclosure. Being able to put a roll-up metal garage-type door in there, that they could move that oven in and out or replace equipment.
Thank you.
Ed?
This is maybe a question for the petitioner, but did they share a functional rationale for why that material was necessary?
They did say fire resistance, but then also just I think the disassembly to be able to change out equipment was the main thing that they put in as their rationale.
Gotcha.
Getting back to Michael's question, class 4 materials include a smooth face and non-decorative block, concrete panels, tilt-up or precast, asphaltic, fiberglass, metal, ply roofing siding, non-decorative panels, corrugated metal. So that's a prohibited material. When we go to class 3 material, class 3 materials include architectural / decorative metal panels.
What is cinder block considered?
It would be a class 4 material.
Okay, so it would be mentioned.
Okay. Well,
Other,
yeah.
other technical questions? Okay, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Come on up, sir. State your name and address. You know who you are. We'd love to have a chat with you.
My name is Howard Fluter from Fond du Lac. I represent the petitioners. They couldn't be here today. The partners, one is running the store and one is working at a different job. When they originally proposed this to us, they have this brick oven inside the existing building right now. And the old adage is if it's too hot, if you can't stand heat, get out of the kitchen. It is extremely hot in that building. They need to get out of there just because of comfort levels for the existing structure. The air conditioning system just can't keep up when the thing fires up. It's essentially a great big pizza oven, but it's used for the Mideastern specialty products that they make in that store. We viewed this thing initially as nothing more than enclosures that are on outsides of structures all over the place, outside coolers, outside freezers, outside storage buildings like that. And essentially that's all it is. There's no public access to it. We need to have a door on it so we can get in and service it periodically, of course. And the potential of needing to change it out or switch it to a different piece of equipment, smaller piece of equipment, larger piece of equipment, is paramount in order to disassemble. We understand the need for aesthetics in this situation, but also are struggling with the practicality. And what is the difference between a corrugated metal panel and an architectural metal panel? And from our standpoint, we see an architectural metal panel is harder to take apart. Generally, architectural metal panels are concealed fasteners. They're maybe screwed to the building from the inside, has different support structures. And so in order to disassemble a wall to get this oven out of that situation, it weighs about 3,000 pounds, by the way. We'd have to take the whole building apart in order to get the thing out rather than just unscrewing a few panels to get out what we need to get out.
Someone mentioned here that possibly having like a garage door type of thing. Does that
Well, and one of the questions I was going to ask of the commission was if indeed we understand the recommendations for denial, and I don't have the permission to speak from the owners whether or not they want to spend additional money to do this enclosure. Maybe they'd be better off spending that money putting in a better cooling system in the store. That's another possibility, I guess. But that being said, if two sides of this building were put in with masonry, east and west, north side was an overhead garage type door, but an overhead type garage door which folds back up into it like your house garage would interfere with the equipment because there's a stack that goes through the roof. So if indeed that was used, which I think is a really good idea, but we'd want to incorporate a rolling coiling type door, and I really hate to say this, but the kind you see on many warehouses. And they coil up into a drum above the door so it doesn't travel over the top of the piece of equipment. To me, that wouldn't look very much different than a piece of corrugated metal panel. But that is a possibility. We'd also like to consider, if that's something we do have to go in, that we'd make just the east and west walls the masonry. It would really make no sense to put a great big heavy structural member over the top of the north wall, over the top of the overhead door opening, just for a few courses of block. We'd have to incorporate some sort of a different kind of trim up there rather than masonry to make that more practical.
Kathy, you had a question?
Yeah. I live over there, and I walked around it today. I'm wondering if you could put your garage door on the west side of this enclosure. Two masonry walls, one on the east, one on the north, facing the bowling alley. Would you have enough room, if you did that, put your garage door there by the crash enclosure, to do whatever you needed to do with the oven? And then nobody's going to be looking at the door there. That commercial building, of course, blocks.
Correct.
anybody looking
And
at it.
that does make some sense. Now let's get back into the rationale for this whole thing. The 3,000-pound oven is now sitting inside. It came in pieces, and it wrecked the floor when it came in. So our intent is to build this enclosure, roof, two walls, not the north wall, and drive an extendable boom forklift in to a prepared opening in the back of the building, pick the oven up and pull it back and set it down in
Oh,
the
all right.
enclosure.
Okay.
So to go around the corner would be kind of
Okay.
impossible.
But anyway, I do like that store, and I do like the bread that they make in this oven.
Naan bread, that's what they make
I
in
would
there.
like to work out something that is not cost prohibitive that the districts can do.
And again, like I say, I
You
don't
might have
have,
to lay it over again, but
I don't have the permission to speak for the owners in that regard to find out what they will be willing to spend on that. Can any further negotiations as far as the appearance take place with staff, or does it have to come back before commission?
We could, like Kathy said, we could lay this over with the condition that you guys keep working on something.
Yeah, keep working
That's
on
one
it.
possibility.
We'd appreciate that.
Are there any other questions for the petitioners on here? Ed?
This is maybe a staff question and petitioner question. If we did, hi Darren. If we did, I guess I'm just trying to think of. It sounds like maybe there is a way that we can get this done. Obviously, you can't speak for the petitioner, like you said, but in the interest of not having to have them reapply and come back 6 weeks from now or something like that, is there a way to add something to this saying that while we denied the metal paneling, that we would approve some sort of block addition with a door, provided staff, provided approval administratively? I'd hate to have this laid over for 2 weeks worth of conversation for you guys, then a reapplication, then another meeting and another. Next thing you know, we're talking about the middle of July.
Nope. They
Trying to-
wouldn't have to reapply. So from that standpoint, if we just laid over, it'd come back to the.
It would come back.
If we can work.
I mean, my thought is that if you approve something that it seems like maybe there's a consensus here, they wouldn't even have to come back at
Sure,
all.
give us some direction and.
I guess that was maybe my thought, is to kind of,
Yeah, if you give us some language that you're comfortable
that, while staff doesn't, while the planning commission doesn't approve this, we deny that, we would approve something, along the lines that staff would then approve in-house.
Sure.
I don't know that I want to make that motion or
At least
not,
we
but
know it's an option.
at least we know it's an option. I guess
We're not
more
there yet.
parliamentary wise, can we do that?
We would prefer that as well, if we can find that balance.
Right, yeah, that way we're not back here 2 weeks from now listening to us
We would very much appreciate
dissect
that.
the fineries of metal paneling and all that.
As
so.
fun as that would be.
Exactly, as much as we all love metal paneling.
Yeah. Any other questions for the petitioners?
And I do like metal
Hard
paneling.
enough to be here. All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Okay, back to the commission. What might a solution look like?
You're looking at me.
We don't have to, I'm just saying, solution is the wrong word. What would an approach look like that would allow them to work with these folks and not necessarily have to bring this back here? Ed?
I see, I want to defer to staff on the recommendation here. I do think there is, an argument to be made that this is pretty well blocked on a number of different sides. It's not something that everybody's going to see. So I'm sensitive to the sort of heavy-handedness of making them do something more than what they're proposing. But at the same time, we have these standards for reasons, and it's a class 4 material that is prohibited. And the cinder block I can get behind because it's in keeping with the aesthetic of the existing structure, the neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. So I would probably make some sort of motion that we would go along with the recommendation for denial, but add a condition that a reconstituted structure of some combination of block and garage door would be something approvable by staff. I don't know if that's anywhere near it, but you guys can work through that.
What about, was there discussion on moving the paneling to the west side or the east side of the structure, or west side of the structure? Where did that go? I was talking.
It sounded like,
They have to come in with a floor plan.
yeah, functionality wise, it didn't sound possible, so.
Well, I guess a question for all of you to consider, I mean, the people that are gonna be looking at this are gonna be the ones walking out of the bowling alley. Is there gonna be an appreciable difference if they see a garage door that's more expensive as opposed to metal paneling?
Yeah,
I mean, if you've seen that building, I mean, no offense to the owner, but it's I call it a box colonial, it's just a square cinder block building.
Yeah?
I think my problem with that is that our class 4 materials are prohibited. And so I would rather see a garage door, even if it is one of these roll-up things, because it's not gonna be rolled up that much. They're gonna move the oven in, door goes down, and maybe once a year they look at it, they roll it up, roll it back down again, so I think it's gonna be a garage door in place, it's not gonna be pretty, no. Yes, the building's ugly. But I think that could work. I think that could solve their problem.
Well, that is, the garage door is, if you want to think about it, it's kind of a loophole.
Perfect.
All about loopholes. Let's use the loopholes.
We might have to work on that, but, yeah, we don't have a standard for garage doors.
I gotta remember that.
My question.
Better
with a
garage door.
Yeah, if cinder blocks are also class 4,
Yes.
Undecorative cinder block.
they'd be able to use that
They can do that because it's
Because that's what
substantially the
it's made
same.
out of.
because it's what's made out? Okay, got it.
So going back to what would this third condition, what might it say?
I think that the condition is just they have to work with the department to come up with an acceptable solution. I mean, that's what we're looking for.
And we've thrown out some things here that are possibilities.
Yeah, I don't know if you've got enough direction on what it is that an additional block wall and garage door.
Garage door or alternative metal. panel.
Yes.
Yes.
Alternative,
All right.
That'll give us enough latitude to work.
okay.
And if we can't come to a conclusion, we'll just bring it back on the next meeting.
Sure.
You want to lay it over then?
No. We're basically empowering them to come up with a solution, working with them.
Okay, good.
And
Thank you.
And so essentially a yes vote denies with the additional condition that gives them the direction to approve administratively if it meets sort of what we've talked about. So a yes vote, okay. That's as much for me. I'm gonna make sure I know what I'm saying.
We just need to, because you're essentially approving a variance.
Confused
from a
because
modified
you have to vote
condition on the
yes.
Now, you got a motion to table.
No, it's not a motion to table.
No, we have a motion to, well, we don't have a motion.
No.
Because you can't
But
vote yes to deny.
If we vote
either
yes to
vote-
this, we're voting yes to denying the current proposal.
Yes.
You're saying, the question is, how do you vote yes on that while also instructing them to,
Well, we're voting yes on
You see, that's
the,
where I'm coming, the whole Robert's Rules thing, when you vote in the affirmative,
You're voting on this.
you're actually voting to approve
Yes.
what they've submitted.
no, you're voting,
you're voting,
you're voting,
voting-
the staff is suggesting deny. If we say yes, we're denying.
Yeah,
so
but-
we are
but
voting.
No,
we're
no,
voting
no.
on the proposal.
Yeah,
Right.
the
You
Not
have to
staff
vote no to
recommendation.
deny.
Okay,
the
Got
staff
it.
is recommending.
Got it. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to Robert Rule.
Yeah,
you know.
and
If
that's
we
why I
vote
wanted to
no-
bring it up, because I don't know what I'm.
if we vote no on this proposal, then how do you add a condition that?
That's what I'm trying
No,
to.
no,
that-
yeah,
I
and we're
understand
voting-
where you're
Okay, so
coming-
it's
you
a no,
understand-
yes.
Because
I
we-
totally
Right, I
get
think
what
we're
you're
voting yes,
We
we're
have to
voting
vote
yes
up or
on the
down this
proposal
as
with
a
the
vote.
conditions
So if we
that
vote yes,
the
then we have to
city
put
and the
condition
applicant are
that
able to come
they
to an agreement.
Get together with staff before.
Satisfies
construction. Do you understand where I'm
code.
coming from on that?
Right?
But we don't want Fisher to walk away saying we've approved what he proposed.
Right.
Did not.
We approved it with conditions, which we do all the time.
So why can't we just kick it forward then another 2 weeks? Just table it for 2 weeks.
That's
what
probably
I'm
the
saying.
simplest way.
Yes, because voting yes for no and
We
everything
can
doesn't work.
rewind before I even had that idea.
I make a motion to lay it over.
Theory.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to lay it over for 2 weeks, which gives people time to figure out some sort of solution. Sure. Is there any discussion on that motion? Then let's call the roll.
Kathleen Pratt,
Aye.
Ed Bowen,
Aye.
Steve Cummings,
Aye.
Michael Ford,
Aye.
John Hint,
Aye.
Robert Weigert,
Aye.
Thomas
Foiled by
Perry,
parliamentary procedure.
No.
Andrew Mott,
Aye.
Thomas Voitek.
Aye.
Motion carried, right?
Yeah, motion to
Motion.
table.
Motion to table 8-1.
So you guys got a couple weeks.
I've got red tape.
I'd like to see this work. All right, moving on to item 3A, which is you were given a revised staff report. And staff will explain why it's revised when it's hands.
I don't know if this,
This-
oh, that is
this-
a revised one.
Conditional use permit, general development plan, and specific implementation plan approval for a fuel station and convenience store located at the northeast corner of Oshkosh Avenue and Northwest. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so we have two kind of agenda items for this development. We're going to take them one at a time here. The first is the conditional use permit general development plan and specific implementation plan for the fuel station and convenience store. So this is the Casey's development that we've been discussing for several months now. They're actually at this point ready to move forward with it. This is lot 2 of the proposed CSM you saw a little while ago. So it's approximately 1.37 acre site at the northeast corner of Oshkosh Avenue in that future North Westfield extended. This is just the existing land use maps. Right now it's a mixture of vacant land and one remaining single-family home. So here you can see that this area is a little old. That home at the northwest corner has been already removed. The applicant, or excuse me, the owner of this property is now also in control of the 2 residential homes to the east. So as though they will still show up as residentially zoned properties today, the developer for this area has now control of those 2 properties as well. And long-term, those will be removed and changed to some sort of commercial as well. So here, as you can see, it is lot 2 of that CSM that we viewed a little while ago. So Casey's is proposing to construct approximately 5,100 square foot commercial convenience store with an approximately 7,500 square foot fuel canopy. It would include 8 double fueling stations, so a total of 16 fueling stations. Typical store operation would be 5 a.m. to about midnight and would employ approximately 20 to 30 people. Going back here. So a couple of unique characteristics with this site. The first thing I'll direct you to is that they will need an access control variance on the north side. So this property is proposed to be serviced by a combined single access drive between this and the parcel to the north, and ultimately that access drive will access those 2 parcels immediately to the east. Because of that kind of unique configuration of using an access drive almost in a sense as a roadway for those multiple developments, it's necessitating the need for an access control variance down to 0. Normally where this access drive comes in on a traditional development, you would have to have a 75-foot access control basically, so we didn't get any type of queuing issues with people pulling onto the roadway. With the way this development is set up to function, it actually has to go down to 0 for approval. So we'll be handling that as a second item. Additional information for that will be found in the following staff report. But as we normally do, we are recommending that a condition be placed on the GDP SIP approval portion of this to require that access control variance. And I should probably back up for a second here. The conditional use portion of this comes in as in-vehicle sales and service when we set up the corporate business park zoning district are only allowed per conditional use. So the applicant needs the conditional use to be allowed at the gas station convenience store type of use on the property first and foremost. And then we're also handling at the same time that GDP SIP as we work out those site characteristics. Staff is also recommending that a commission be placed on this requiring the finalization of that 3-lot CSM as we viewed just a moment ago. Site plan includes 20 surface parking stalls. Code requirement would be 18, so they do fall within that 1 to 1.25 ratio, so that would meet the code requirements. Again, they are going to need a base standard modification for this unique drive configuration because they're essentially going to a 0-foot north property line to maintain kind of these 2 access points out onto that shared driveway. So staff is recommending approval of that 0-foot just because its kind of function is part of a larger development area. Next, staff is recommending a base standard modification be issued. Similar to the previous cases, this loading stall along the east side of the building right now is within 50 feet of a residentially zoned parcel. Now, ultimately, this parcel is not going to remain residential. The owner is already starting to work through plans of potential commercial development there, but because at this time it remains zoned residential, we need to issue a base standard modification for a loading dock within 50 feet of a residential zoning district. Stormwater management plans have been submitted and they are working through the Department of Public Works. This area, kind of as we learned with the Oshkosh Corp site, there is some unique stormwater management practices going on for this area. So they've been working with the Department of Public Works and those will be finalized during the site plan review process. As for landscaping, the applicant is providing sufficient foundation landscaping per the code. That includes both the 50% requirement along that main entrance. In this case, we are treating the south building facade as that main entrance. Paved area landscaping, applicant is meeting and exceeding all of the requirements for paved area landscaping. Street frontage landscaping, the applicant again is meeting and exceeding all those code requirements. Yard landscaping is the unique one to the corporate business park zoning district. Per that section of the code, we are requiring additional screening be taken out of the general yard and moved to the street frontages. And the applicant has done that. They have added the increased landscaping as needed on the two frontages along Westfield and Oshkosh Avenue. Because the unique characteristics of this site to the east still remaining single-family residentially zoned, the applicant is requesting a base center modification from the buffer yard requirements. Instead of having to put a fence up along this property line and screen it per our buffer yard requirements, we're proposing, and the applicant is proposing, to just treat it as a normal yard that would be between commercial districts. In this case, the applicant has almost 330 points of landscaping along that. So even in the interim, before that structure is removed and it turns over to commercial development, there is substantial landscaping taking place between the two properties. So staff is in support of that buffer yard base center modification. So here are the elevations of the building. These should look relatively familiar to what we saw at the last workshop. With the addition, they have carried the the stone up the columns. If previous iteration did not include that. So then here is the other two building facades. And then we do have some in color. One thing I will note is this east building wall. During the original submittal of the SIP, these windows were not in place, and you're gonna see a condition that we placed on this development that east wall be updated to meet the articulation requirements and Class 1 material requirements. These actually just came in today, and it has met that requirement now, but your staff report is not going to reflect that. It's still going to have the conditions in there. I would recommend we just leave the conditions in as they are, just to make sure we maintain that elevation as we now show today. This is the dumpster enclosure on the property. Staff is recommending a condition be placed on this, and we've discussed with the applicant, and the applicant seems to be fairly agreeable to it. Right now, the original proposed dumpster enclosure just had all brick with one soldier course and then more brick. Staff is recommending that they use the same 2 feet 2 inches of cultured stone around it to mimic the look of the building. In our corporate business park district, we added that requirement that accessory structures be comparable to the primary structure. So in this case, staff felt it was appropriate to mimic that same look of that cultured stone around the base. And the applicant seems to agree that that is acceptable. Same thing is going to be found on the signage. We've asked the monument sign be wrapped in that same 2 feet 2 inches of cultured stone, but we'll get to those elevations. Talking about signage a little bit, so the applicant is proposing 46.61 square feet of pin-mounted letters on the north and south sides of the building. Those do fall within the code-compliant amounts. One concern staff had is these signs that Case uses are traditionally internally illuminated. With pushing this building as far to the street frontage as we can and residential kind of directly across the street to the south, staff had a little bit concerned with kind of visual glare and clutter from that internally illuminated Casey's sign. So we've asked the applicant to change that to an externally illuminated sign so you don't get quite the light clutter coming off the sign. And the applicant has been fine with doing that. I do have to say, during this entire process, Casey's has been very great to work with, really took questions and concerns and suggestions we had and did their best to accommodate them through the entire process. And they were perfectly fine with changing that to an externally illuminated sign. We just got this revised elevation drawing back from them today. They are proposing 3 small Casey's signs on the gas canopy. Those all 3 are within the code compliant requirements. And then finally, this is their newly changed monument sign. It meets the standards for height and size, and they have added in that cultured stone base, as we discussed previously. One thing, if I can go back to the site plan, they are requesting a base standard modification for the location of their monument sign. Code requires that the sign meet the same setbacks as the building, so 30 feet off Westfield, 30 feet off Oshkosh Avenue. Obviously, trying to treat this as a corridor or entryway, we've asked the applicant to really push that building to that front corner of the property. Well, once we do that, it basically eliminates a legal location of placing that monument sign. So they're requesting a base area modification to put it closer to the corner. As this is a controlled intersection between Oshkosh Avenue and North Westfield with lights, there is no clear sight requirement because it's a controlled intersection. You're slowing traffic down already. So staff does not have a concern with the placement of this sign and does recommend we issue that base area modifications. You know, we've kind of, by requesting them to push that so tight to the corner, we've really taken away their ability to put a sign up. One thing I will note is they have included that kind of pedestrian element with a knee wall and landscaping on the west side of the building, along with the pergola and some outdoor seating. Photometric plan was submitted. They are requesting a base standard modification for this along the north and east sides of the property. As you can see on this plan, there's already beginning commercial development ideas for this property to the east. And they're kind of trying to use this site to illuminate that larger development area. So they do exceed the 0.5 along this kind of north driveway area and somewhat on the east side here. Staff is recommending approval of that as this is really functioning as part of a larger commercial development area and not just a standalone site. Going back a little bit to the building elevations, as noted in your staff report, they were deficient on that east building facade, but that has been rectified. So their new elevations now meet the articulation requirement of no more than 40 feet without some vertical breakup, and also now meets the 75% Class 1 requirement. In your staff report, they were at about 70.65, and they've brought that up with the additional windows that were installed. Staff believes it does meet the base middle top requirement that was included in the corporate business park zoning district as well. Staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit, general development plan, and specific implementation plan, subject to a number of conditions. First, approval of the access control variances, which is the next item on the agenda. Completion of the required CSM to create Lot 2 as shown. Base standard to allow that 0-foot setback along the north. Base standard to allow the loading area within 50 feet of a residential district. Right now it's at like 41 feet, but again, that property will not be residential in the long term. Refuse enclosure to include the same 2 feet 2-inch cultured stone as the primary building. Monument sign to also include that same cultured stone. Number 7, a code compliant east building elevation that has been submitted and reviewed. It would be just my recommendation we leave it in there to make sure it continues forth in that direction. Base standard modification for the buffer yard along the east to the 330 landscape points is provided. Base standard modification to allow that lighting to exceed the 0.5 candlelight on the north and east. And the wall sign on the south building facade be externally illuminated.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you, sir. Technical question?
The externally illuminated lighting on that, is that the
South
south
facade.
facade? Have they provided any detail on how they're going to handle that? Is it gooseneck lighting? Is it like up lighting?
They have not provided the exact details of how they will accomplish their lighting. They've only indicated that they are fine with changing it to externally illuminated. I know the applicants here, and they may be able to.
Do we have anything in our code dealing with how externally lit signage is required to be dealt with and approved? I mean, it's sort of haphazard.
Yeah, we discussed it to agree, but I don't think we give any exact requirements of what you have to do for externally illuminated signage.
But if there's a preference that you want externally illuminated,
I don't-
gooseneck type lighting.
Yeah, I don't.
That'd be my preference, but
I don't know that they're. I mean, whatever's the least intrusive, I suppose. Is probably the gooseneck style. My other question was about the loading area on
Yes.
the east side of the building. Is there any concern? Is that a curbed? That's not a curbed area running in front of the store, is it? That's just at
This?
grade. Yeah. Is that a curb?
I believe we do not require curbing there. We allow the bollards as opposed to the curbing.
Oh, okay.
We give those two options.
Okay, so there's no concern about that couple of the 2-3 parking stalls right there having any conflict with delivery traffic or anything like that?
No, we've done this in several locations for both, not just Casey's, but other developments where the parking in front of the dumpster area and loading is parking for the daily use.
Okay.
and then couples as that access points for those two things.
Okay. And you guys don't have any concern on that?
At least up to now, we have not seen any issues with that kind of practice.
Okay.
All right, other technical questions, Kat?
I don't know why I don't know this. North of the dumpster enclosure, what are those?
That's the fuel,
It's all underground.
the underground fuel tanks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's not visible.
No, nope.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Hope not.
No, not either. I'm not looking at that and I don't know.
Any other technical?
DNR agrees.
Technical questions? All right, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Come on up, sir. Meet again.
It's not a rural co-op, yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Swanson with Arc Design Resources. Good to be back again. Just a couple things I want to add. A couple questions that came up. The delivery, that area there, and all of the sidewalk in the front is flush. So anybody that parks there along those spaces would be able just to basically walk right along the sidewalk. The lighting for the external illumination, typically that's not done, so it's fairly rare. But I think what they would propose, and they're talking internally now, but a dark bronze, either gooseneck or a bar. The intent would be to continuously light the word Casey's as much as possible without providing shadows or things like that. But it'd be a dark bronze fixture that would throw the light against the letters as opposed to, out and glare into the street. But that dark bronze should, just looking at the brick behind it, it should kind of blend in fairly well. One other thing I want to mention on the access, which I know is the next item, but we did check, staff recognized that as a concern not to block the intersection. We can direct all of our trucks in that entrance and then out the eastern driveway. We did check the truck routing, and the fuel tanks being on that side, the underground tanks and the delivery area, it works out well anyway. So we did check, and we can bring the trucks in and then out that way. So the bigger delivery trucks won't be able to block the intersection. So I just want to add that. I know it's another item, but beyond that, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Questions for the gentleman? Just thank you for working so well with the staff. I mean, I just think this has turned into a very nice.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate staff's patience and really the process within the city here. It's pretty organized and always been able to answer questions. And I think the suggestion for the stone on the columns came from this commission here. So I think it was a good touch, to be honest with you. I don't recall who suggested it, but I think it really makes this building look sharp.
It was probably Kathy. We'll just give Kathy.
Any other questions for
We'll give
the
Kathy.
petitioner? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else here speak to this item today? Okay, seeing none, public comments closed, back to the commission.
I make a motion to approve.
Second?
And Kathy?
I just want to say that I still don't want a convenience store there. Casey's has done a remarkable job on this plan, and I appreciate what they've done.
Other comments, Steve?
My concern remains, as Kathy's does, a gas station on a major thoroughfare into the city, a new gateway. We've not seen plans, any vision for that whole section of Oshkosh Avenue. My fear is it's going to wind up looking like a frontage road. We'll have a gas station here and something else here and something else here, and it's going to look like a hodgepodge. I think our charge as a commission is to really look at the future, what's best for the future of the city of Oshkosh. And by that I mean the next 25, 50 years. And what gets built there is going to be there for a long time. And as a gateway to our city, I know I've said gateway a lot, Eddie, but.
Have you?
I have.
Okay.
But we have been criticized for years about 9th Street and Jackson. Those entrances just evolved over time. This is our chance to do a gateway to the city properly. We've got people coming to Oshkosh Corp. We've got people coming to the university, parents to look at the university. We've got Evergreen Manor that's invested millions of dollars in a very nice apartment complex that my fear is, I don't care how much architectural work you do on it, it's going to be a gas station. And it's going to look like a gas station. And I think we owe it to the citizens of Oshkosh to look for better developments, higher quality developments for this section of Oshkosh. So I will not be supporting this at all.
All right, other comments or questions, John?
With that said, I think when we created this zoning district, and we knew that there was going to be some kind of a fuel supply operation coming into the area because of the amount of traffic going to be generated just from the 500 employees at Oshkosh Corp alone, much less the other developments. This is why we created this zoning. We have a convenience store that's going in that's like nothing else in the city of Oshkosh. And we actually have something we can pull back to and say, hey, why can't things be more like this for other ones throughout the city down the road? Granted, they aren't in that same zoning district. We can still poke them and prod them when they come to see us, which is what we do a lot. We have a lot of members who do that with everything that comes through here. So I don't think it's the end of the gateway area. I think it's providing a valuable service to a gateway area, and it's going to blend in with what we get around the area, especially with the hotel coming in. You have people at the hotel who are going to need to fuel up, grab snacks, get food, so on and so forth. So I don't see this as a big negative, and I think we're approaching this as we're allowing this gas station there. It's not something that's something that we've said is going to be part of all of these. We're actually making an exception for this, and I think we've done that the right way.
All right, thank you.
I think
Go ahead, Robert.
with the changes that Casey's have been willing to do to this building to make it more acceptable for that area, which you don't see on the rest of the convenience stores in the city. I think in that itself is an addition to that area, not a subtraction. I will support it.
All right, anyone else here? Kath?
Well, Steve's right. Neither one of us wanted a convenience store there. But we had a healthy discussion at this commission about the criteria for this new zoning district. And we lost. You know, we had a healthy discussion and it was good and we lost. So we lost. We do know what's coming in, the Residence Inn and that development to the west. So we've seen that. Perhaps the mayor's concern is we've got 2 more lots to the east now that we don't know what will be proposed. And I think it's up to us when the proposal comes in to make sure that it doesn't look hodgepodge, piecemeal, inappropriate, as best we can. So I will be supporting this.
Any other comments or questions about the motion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Kathleen Prapp,
Aye.
Ed Bowen,
Aye.
Steve Cummings,
No.
Michael Ford,
Aye.
John Hintz,
Aye.
Robert Weigert,
Aye.
Thomas Perry,
Aye.
Andrew Mott,
Aye.
Thomas Voitek.
Aye.
Motion carried 8-1.
Let's move on to our final item of business today. Item 3B, access control variance for reduced lateral clearance at 1686 Oshkosh.
I won't add a whole lot more than we already have. We've kind of discussed this. This is using kind of a shared single driveway to access this entire development area. That has necessitated the need for the lateral clearance variance, and staff is in support of it.
All right, I was expecting more, but I don't know why. All right, any technical questions? Okay, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Once, twice? Okay, back to the commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, let's call the roll one more time.
All right, Kathleen Prapp,
Aye.
Ed Bowen,
Aye.
Steve Cummings,
Aye.
Michael Ford,
Aye.
John Hintz,
Aye.
Robert Weigert,
Aye.
Thomas Perry,
Aye.
Andrew Mott,
Aye.
Tom Voitek.
Aye.
Motion approved 9-0.
All right, now, turn, and we have a couple workshop items. All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, business meeting's over, moving on to workshops.